So we're all getting slapped in the face with the reality of climate change now. It's bad, man. It is so bad. So heat records are being absolutely obliterated all over the place. The Pacific Northwest turned into like hotter than Phoenix for a while. Just shattering records. Parts of Canada as well, shattering records. It was so hot that roads were buckling. You know, and by the way, I read something incredibly disturbing. Like, I don't know if it's half the houses or somewhere around half the houses in Seattle don't have heat. Or excuse me, not heat. Hilarious. Don't have AC. And so you get 115 degree weather and you don't have heat. That's called a lot of people are going to die. That's what that is. So, I mean, this is nightmare scenario. And by the way, guys, every time one of these things happens, it's always worse than what the previous worst case scenario was predicted to be. Oh, God. So we've probably already hit the tipping point. We've already hit the point of no return in the sense that now we also need to rely on technology to help try to fix the problem, which none of the technology that we would need to this point exists. So, oh man, this is just terrifying and scary in a million ways. Now, I saw that what you're about to see here is a segment on Madagascar, and this really, really puts in stark terms the terrible effects of climate change. It's not just hotter weather. It's not just rising sea levels. It's not just more increased extreme, natural disaster events like hurricanes or whatever. It's also this.
Now, Madagascar is paying one of the highest prices for climate change, which they have done little to cause. The toughest droughts in 40 years have left thousands on the island on the brink of starvation. Malnourished children and adults are forced to forage for leaves to eat. But aid groups say that the help reaching the island is doing little to stop the situation getting worse.
This was once fertile farmland, but now it's a desert. Years of drought have destroyed nearly all of the crops here. Strong winds sweeping away the soil, and then sandstorms covering what's left. Entire communities are on the brink of starvation. People here have resorted to eating whatever they can find.
In the morning, I prepared this plate of insects. I clean them the best I can without any water. For 8 months, my children and I have been eating this plant every day. We have nothing else to eat and no rain to grow crops.
People here are on the front line of a global climate crisis. Madagascar hardly emits any greenhouse gases, but it's one of the worst victims of climate change.
We're facing the worst drought in over 40 years. And this is an area where people depend on their own agriculture, homegrown school meals, smallholder farmers. This is how they live down here. But with drought, back to back to back, people can't survive.
The cycle of drought is tearing families apart. These two boys orphaned after their mother died of hunger. They've been taken in by another family, but severely malnourished, they're still not getting enough to eat.
We have nothing left. Their mother is dead, and my husband is dead. What do you want me to say? Our life centers around looking for cactus leaves to survive.
Nearly 1 million people in southern Madagascar depend on food aid. Some people here walked for hours to get help, but not everyone is healthy enough to make the long journey. Aid organisations are urging that more be done to help Madagascar. Food to feed the hungry mouths, and finally, action on climate change.
So now we're talking about drought after drought after drought and starvation, mass starvation. Another one of the underreported aspects of climate change is that there are regions of the world, particularly in the Middle East and also in parts of Asia, that will literally become uninhabitable as a result of climate change, and probably not too far in the future. Right now they say by the end of this century, but it might be even sooner, because again, every time we go back and look at these things, it's worse than the worst case projection. So when you have giant regions being uninhabitable, they have to clear out. Then they have to go other places. Where are they going to go? You're going to have another mass immigration crisis, border crisis, which will then in turn lead to a rise of more xenophobia and more bigotry. It'll lead to fighting over natural resources. Wars over water are coming at some point in the future. Because as we discussed on our last show, the Southwest U.S. is running out of water. And by the way, they're also growing at the same time. Like Las Vegas' population is exploding and their water sources are like 37% of what they're supposed to be. And it's probably going to keep going down. So we're just sort of crossing our fingers and hoping that if we conserve water enough and eventually break, the drought or the way the weather is, then maybe it'll work out. But this is all terrifying, man. It absolutely is. And it's just such a weird and crazy thing to think about that some places will surpass the wet bulb temperature, which is the term that's used to describe places that are just no longer suitable for humans to live because it's just too hot. The time to act was decades ago. But at this late date, I mean, it is just so beyond obvious that we need a Green New Deal. We need to be aggressive on this stuff. And by the way, if we were intelligent, we would look at this as an opportunity to do a New Deal and focus on green and renewable technology and jobs, and also lead the world with the, impending patents on the technology that's needed to fight back against climate change and move towards clean energy. So, but we're not doing that. We're dragging our feet. Even under Democratic administrations, not much is getting done. It's bad, man. It's bad. And human beings, we're very, very adaptive. So when something happens, we could when it's a matter of necessity, we change course. But until we're at that point where it's necessity, we always drag our feet. And this is one of those things where it really was a necessity decades ago, but we didn't do enough. But at some point, it's going to be too late, and it might already be too late. So that means not only do we need to do the right things to stop further emissions, but also we need to come up with some sort of technology to get us moving in the reverse direction. So I don't like to be a pessimist, but this is one of those stories where it's hard to not let my pessimism show, because we human beings are disastrously off base with how we're moving forward.